Well, I know one thing. You don't wait for your enemy to come to you.
I have lost all my skills. And now I know how it feels to be utterly helpless, like you and your sister.
He had your gun in his hand.
Sing the song for me, Silky. This is murder.
Well, the thing about saying the wrong word is that A, I don't notice it, and B, sometimes orange water given bucket of plaster.
Using his vast knowledge of history and politics, we start our day off right with motivational speaker Richard Battle.
Love having him on the program. Mr. Battle, how are you, sir?
Good morning, Al. We're doing great. It's pizza oven time in Texas.
I tell you what, we're not quite there yet, but today this weather breaks. Temperature has dropped. Humidity, it's like walking through your shower. It's just, you can feel it. It's amazing, but it's got to give up at some point. Sooner or later it'll break. I'm sorry you're having that kind of heat.
Well, that's okay. It's July in Texas. It's expected. And the good thing is today, if not for other teams, starts fall football practice.
There we go.
All of the gala activities that go with football games. And it's a great time to talk about our subject today because it'll help people understand and appreciate it even more than they may have otherwise.
All right. The topic, was he in the 18th century?
19th century.
19th century. He's in the 19th century book? Is that what you're talking about? Okay.
Yes, sir.
And today's topic, Francis Scott Key. What's funny about this, I think a lot of people think they know, the story, and they don't have a flipping clue, right? I mean, they don't know the whole story.
Well, I learned several things in researching this, and this is very much like Grandma in the roast pan. And I brought up football because most of us will go to high school, college, or pro games during the year or watch them on TV. We'll see the national anthem, and most of us, we'll just kind of go through the motions and not think twice about it because we've lost the why. And so most know the song, some know the author, but few know the story. And Francis Scott Key's birthday is tomorrow. And so I thought it would be a good time between the start of football season and his birthday to talk about our national anthem and why it means so much, so that the next time we stand and sing it, we'll appreciate it more.
I love this idea. Excuse me, I got something in my throat. So, as the story goes, he was there for a battle on a ship. Next day, he sees Old Glory Boat wrote the song. That's it, right? Are we done?
Yeah, that's the Cliff Note version. But let's back up for a minute. So,
all right,
this goes back to the time of 1812, and I can already see people saying, "Well, God, that's 200 years ago. Who cares?" But that generation after the Revolution, they preserved and perpetuated the liberty that we have. In the War of 1812, the United States had grievances against Britain because basically they were infringing on our sovereignty. They were trying to argue with us over certain land. They were impressing our sailors onto their ships. And so we went to war. And in the 1812 and 13, it was mostly up along the St. Lawrence River. But in 1814, it got real down on the eastern seaboard. And just 3 weeks before the event we're going to talk about, the British came into Washington, D.C., and they burned the Capitol and they burned the White House. It was the executive mansion then. People were deathly afraid that Britain was going to win and we would be subjects of the king again and lose our republic and our liberty.
And this is literally only, 30 years after the start of the country, right? I mean, we weren't that well established yet.
1814 is when this event, the war had been going
on. Or 76.
I'm
I'm just doing the math in my head. So 24, you're 38 years later, right?
Yeah, not very long at all. So we were a fragile country. This was the first defense of our freedom and first and last, thankfully, on our home turf for the most part as well. And so there was a great chance of losing this war. And so in Baltimore Harbor, the British were coming in with 5,000 troops and several ships, and they were going to invade Baltimore. And if they would have won, then we would have lost not only that fight, but the war. And so that was kind of the setup. And Francis Scott Key was an attorney in Baltimore. But what's so important is he was against the war because of his faith. He didn't believe that we should be in the war at all. Typical to some people we have today who don't believe we ought to have been involved with different wars, past, present, or future, as well. And so his attitude about that makes what he did even more extraordinary.
Was he a musician of any sort, do we know? I mean, he was an attorney, but did he have a background at all in music writing or anything like that?
Well, he wrote some poetry and songs and fashioned himself in that area, but he's like so many others of us in our different crafts that, you know, we choose, but do they choose us back?
Yeah, no doubt. I just find, I mean, the song is interesting, and it's a catchy little tune. It's hung on there for a couple hundred years, but there's no way in the world I could write a song. I played tuba for 6 months, and then once I found out there were more than 8 notes, I was out. I couldn't handle it.
Well, I can't read music. I can't carry a tune in a number 3 wash tub. So I have no musical talent whatsoever, but I appreciate the sentiment of this song. And some people today want to say it's a pro-war song. It's not a pro-war song. It's a pro-freedom song. And that's why it's so important. And so his job was going onto a British prison ship in the harbor to rescue one of his friends, William Beans, who'd been imprisoned on that ship. That's how he ended up in the harbor. He didn't go there as a prisoner or fighting or anything else. He went as a lawyer and a mouthpiece for his friend.
Oh, all right. I did not know that. All right. So he, as the lawyer for the guy in the boat, got on that ship.
Yes, and he had a couple of friends with him. And what was interesting was he got his friend off, and his friend got off the ship. But the British said, you can't leave until the fight's over with, and kept him on the ship. And they did that, and it was very smart because they were attacking, and they didn't want him to go off the ship and give the Americans any intelligence that he may have gained from being on the ship that might affect what the fight was. And so they kept him overnight, and they told him, if that flag is struck from the fort, if it falls, this fort falls, the war is over.
Love it. Let's take a break right there. Leave it there. He's on the boat. He's been told we lose that flag, it's all over. We'll have more about Francis Scott Key with Richard Battle right after this.
Think about it. Now that school's out for the summer, how are Minnesota students doing? Not very well. Minnesota ACT scores fell again last year and are the lowest they've been in 10 years. In fact, fewer than half of Minnesota students can either read or do math at grade level. Think about it. We used to brag about our schools. Now we're losing to states like Mississippi. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Achieving your financial goals requires individual planning and a comprehensive approach. At Midwest Money Management, our mission is to provide you with the knowledge, tools, and confidence to feel comfortable financially today and secure about tomorrow. Learn more at MidwestMoneyManagement.com. That's MidwestMoneyManagement.com.
Securities offered through JW Cole Financial Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services offered through JW Cole Advisors Inc., Midwest Money Management, and JW Cole Financial Inc. and JW Cole Advisors Inc. are unaffiliated entities.
don't need to ask him his opinion more than once. Al Travis on The Al Travis Show.
So to catch us up real quickly, you'll find most of this story in Richard Battle's book, Americans Who Made America. 19th century growth, division, and reunification. It's on page 136, Francis Scott Key. He is an attorney in Boston, 1814. Not happy that the British had burnt down most of America's capital, but he didn't want to be in the war. He didn't believe in the war because of religious reasons. But he ends up being on a ship with his buddy, trying to get him out because he was a lawyer. And they told him, hey, you watch that flag. Once that goes down, the war is over. And we'd all be speaking with a British accent. Where are we at? Now what happens next?
Well, yes, and it was in Baltimore, although that sounds close to Boston, but that's
Did
true.
I say Boston? Yeah,
so,
Baltimore, thank you.
So then we think about the flag. The fort had two flags. The larger one was called a garrison flag. It was 30 feet by 42 feet.
Okay.
The smaller one was called a storm flag because they thought it would weather storms better. There's a question about which one was flying. But imagine that 30 by 42 foot flag, which was the largest one anybody had ever seen at that time. Sure. And so the British started the bombardment on September 13th, 1814. They bombarded that fort with multiple ships and guns on each one for 25 hours. Wow. So the noise and the smoke, all of the shells going into the fort, there were 5,000 British soldiers and sailors involved, 1,000 Americans inside that fort holding on for dear life. And when they went to bed, I don't know how they did that. They got up the next morning, and the first thing they wanted to do was go to the rail to see if the flag was still there. And so that's what the heartfelt emotion was when they strained through the smoke and the fog of the day and the sunrise, and they saw that the flag was still there. They knew that the Americans had held on. And then after that, the British, probably because they ran out of ammunition, decided to pull out and leave and stop the attack. The day was held, the country was held, and the flag was still there. And so his emotions, he was so overcome with what he had seen. He began writing the poem before he left the ship. And he wrote the words for the song, which that was a song that was popular back in those days, the melody. And he wrote the words for it within 2 days after that event, not knowing it would be a national anthem, but he wanted to do something to give to those gallant men who had defended that fort. And so that, to me, is what's interesting when we look at the flag at a football game or someplace when the anthem's sung. If we look at it through Francis Scott Key's eyes, with the desperation and the risk of losing the country and the uncertainty of knowing whether it'd still be there or not, it changes our thoughts.
I love that. And I hope when folks hear this and now they go to football games, go to basketball games, and you start singing this song, you'll reflect back on that. Because, there are groups that want their own national anthems now. Like somehow this one isn't good enough for all Americans, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the race or that sort of thing. This literally has to do with one guy's look at what we had to do to survive as a country.
That's absolutely correct. And once again, we've had people twist something that was honorable and good and try to use it for political purposes and turn it into something negative. And I think it's important for us to share with our kids and grandkids so they know why. Because I think when I was a child and we sung it, we weren't really taught the story either. We did it because it had always been done that way.
Yeah.
And the song was adopted by Congress as the national anthem in 1931, but it was sung almost immediately because of Americans' appreciation for the soldiers and their sacrifice in that war.
That is amazing. And then you got to think of a song like that in 1814. Not like they had radio and you're going to hear it as a top 100 chart topper. Somebody gets it, somebody starts singing it, it catches on, it hits people enough, they go, you got to hear this song. And I presume they publish it on paper. But this is the sort of thing that, unlike a great Taylor Swift song, is going to hit, everybody's going to hear it the first week. This had a building effect, I presume, to the point of 1931. It's our national anthem. Everybody had heard it.
Well, yes, and that's what's amazing, because the people back then would tell the story to their kids and grandkids. The kids and grandkids took that patriotism in and passed it along, but over time we forgot to teach why, and we need to teach that why. It's almost as interesting what happened to the flag afterwards, because after it, you think that the government would take it and do something with it, but no. Major Armistead, who was the commander of the fort, he ended up taking the flag, and over the next roughly 100 years, it stayed in his family and was passed down generation to generation, with an occasional display, before finally his grandson donated it to the Smithsonian back in the early 1900s. And we have the privilege of going and seeing it today in Washington at the Smithsonian, and being able to be there basically with the flag.
That is very cool. This is the sort of thing you get when you buy AmeriCANS, Who Made America, 19th Century Growth, Division, and Reunification. This book is fantastic. It goes through, what, you have 40 people in here? 40 of these kind of stories where you think you know what you're talking about. You think you've heard the story, but you don't know it until you read it. Very good read. The sort of thing I really want folks to think about getting for their grandkids, their kids if they're of age. Get these books, put them in the family library. This is the stuff kids need to read.
Well, we appreciate you saying that. That's our objective, is to try to pass along that American-do spirit. And Francis Scott Key is an example of an American who had the American-do spirit and contributed to our liberty and our freedom.
So to really make this thing work, how does someone go about picking up the books? And by the way, it's actually, Made America by AmeriCANS, not AmeriCANS. I believe that was the start of the set. I mean, it's not in the history book format, but right? I mean, this is a 3-book set. You got to get them all. Yeah, okay, I can hold them all up. The Americans Who Made America Great, 18th Century Birth of the Republic. You at least need these two in your history library. I love the motivation of the other one. How do I get them?
Well, richardbattle.com. We have all books are signed. If you want one inscribed, we're happy to do that. Email me, richard@richardbattle.com, after you order. Everything's at Amazon, including Kindle and audio. This latest book will be in Kindle and audio it'll be Kindle next week and audio within a month or so as well. So you have all 3 flavors.
I love that. Again, can you buy them in bulk? What I mean by that, do you get a set? Can I get the set so far? Do I individual? Is anything like that going on?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned it, because on the website, richardbattle.com, if you get these 3 volumes, then we give a gift copy of The 4-Letter Word That Builds Character, which is another great book for teenagers about the American work ethic.
I love that. All right. Go to richardbattle.com. Take a look at all the deals he's got there. Mr. Battle, I love having you in the program. Appreciate you starting our Wednesday off.
Always my pleasure. God bless America.
There are many ways to explore Alexandria.